Hi, this is Dave from Megapoints Controllers. Today I'd like to introduce to you the latest System2 device. It's the System2 Route Processor. Despite its diminutive size, I think by the end of this video you'll agree that it's actually quite a beast. So what can this thing do? Well, obviously it handles routes. It allows you to press a single button and have all your routes set up, whether it's points, gates, barriers, doors, decouplers, signals, whatever on the System2 range, it'll set them up. This device can handle up to 100 routes. Each route can have 16 elements, so 16 points associated with it. And you can trigger routes by push buttons, or you can trigger them by an RFID tag, or you could trigger them by point position or by occupancy. So there's lots and lots of different ways to trigger this device. So let's have a look under the hood and see what it does. So what you can see on screen is a panel controller. That's this device, and it's here just so that I've got something else to talk to when we're driving the route processor. I'll take the route processor that's here on screen and I'll connect it. And when it goes onto the network, we can see on the report on the panel controller, it's come up with no IP address because it doesn't know the network. So I'll just share the Wi-Fi credentials, and a few seconds later, that should appear on the network, ready to go. And there it is with an IP address. If I click the blue IP address, this is common to all System2 devices, we're now talking to the route processor. So we have our panel controller with 8 buttons connected to an off-screen servo driver, a route processor on the network, and if I press a button on the panel controller, you should see the corresponding light change. If we go back to the screen, let's set a route up. First of all, I'll talk you through the headings. The white at the top, it's got the name of the device and the serial number, a picture of it. If you're not sure, it's the whiteboard. For baseboard, I'll just put 33. So this is the board physical location. It's intended to prompt you, because if you've got a lot of boards, so you've got 20 boards on a layout, you might think, well, where is it? If you're talking to it over Wi-Fi, it's not that obvious. So baseboard 33. So the route navigation, well, we're on route number 1. There's a 1 here and there's a big 1 there, and the route has a name and it has no route name at this point. So you navigate through the routes using the up and down triangles, which will take you up and down 1 at a time, or the big arrows, which will take you 10 at a time, or you can just type a number in and it will take you straight to a route. Let's go back to 1. Default delay. Between each element of a route firing, you can add a delay. So we'll cover more of that later on. Enable. So this is the V port that will turn that particular route on. So I'm going to set this to 15, and I'm going to want to display feedback. So I'll do 115 would be the feedback channel. If I want to trigger the route by an RFID tag, I can enter the V port of the RFID reader here, and then it would listen for messages on that reader. And if a corresponding tag from these 16 slots here is matched, then it will turn the route on. I'll give it a name. Test route, if I can type. I'll call it on. Test route on. So what we'll do, we'll set up this route. So I'll do vport 1, vport 2, 3, and 4. And I'll want each of these devices to be switched on. So when a message comes over the network on vport 15, it turns this route on and it will set those devices to on. Let's make the opposite now so that we can have something to turn them off. So what I'll do, I will say duplicate to route number 2. If we look at route number 2 now, I just hit this duplicate button here. It tells me this route is copied from 1. It's got the same devices, everything's looking good. Test route on. Let's call this test route off. Test route off. If only I could type. And we'll trigger this on vport 16, 116 for feedback. And I'm going to turn the devices off. Notice the Save Routes button has now changed to a yellow background. That's prompting me to save my changes. Anytime you make a change, it'll prompt you, do you want to save this? If you don't, when the router reboots, they'll get thrown out. If you press save, then they'll just be loaded automatically. So here's route 1, everything turned on. Here's route 2, everything turned off. I've got this big handy button here, trigger route. If I trigger a route, the route is turned on. And did you notice the 4 LEDs here? They've all moved up. And if I go to route number 2, they've all gone down. So the route's working. Notice, because I've set the 16 and the 116 to the panel, I suspect, let's go to the panel controller, 115 and 116, I set the feedback to display those. So I'm already getting feedback from the route processor when I trigger this route. Trigger, and I can see the route is on. I'll trigger route 1 now, and the opposite's gone. So let's add some buttons. I have a pair of buttons here and a pair of leads. So I'm going to plug them in to number 15 and 16. 15 and 16. If I fire it now, things should happen. I turn the route off. Let's try the other one. So I've turned route 16 on. And if I press it again, I turn the route off. Turn 15 on, and the devices have moved and off. Now, the interesting thing here is, if you turn a route on and something comes along and changes any of the devices on that route, I'll do it from this button here. This is flashing. That's warning you, it's a 1.5 second flash, that the route was broken. So that's just active monitoring. Now if I turn the other button on, they all go off and back, and they all go off. So you've seen very quickly here how easy it is to build up a route. If you look at the status log, every time I press a button, you can see lots of things have happened. It's told us we've set a route, we've triggered it, we've cleared it. You can see here there's a warning, clash at route 1, slot 2, vport 2. Let me press a button and see what happens. I'm going to set a route, and I'm going to press vport number 3. So I've manually moved that, and it's told me, warning, clash on route number 1, slot 3, vport 3. And if I look at route 1, slot 3, well, it's vport 3. And that's because I pressed the button. So it was actively monitoring the route, and then it told me with the flash and the warning message that the route has been broken. And in fact, you can see I've got 3 lights here, not 4. Press a route, turn it off, and now everything has gone back into sync. So you've seen me enter the routes directly by typing in the vports here. That's great if you know them, but probably you won't. So there's an easier way to do it. First of all, I'm going to hit the del all button, and I've just erased all of the routes on the device. I'm going to set up a new route, route number 1. I'm going to enable it on vport 15 again, with the feedback on 115. I'll call it test route 1. How original. This time I'm going to say learn everything on vports 1 to 8 and do it automatically. So I'll say from 1 to vport 8. I'm going to press the learn button. Now when I press buttons, and I'm deliberately pressing them out of sequence, I think I press 7 there. If I press where it says active, if I press that again, it goes from active to learn. We can see now these are the vports I entered and the states that they're in. So I press 4, 2, 3, 1, 6, 7, 5, of which the first one was off and the last 6 were switched on. So it's learned what are the elements of a particular route. I'm going to duplicate that now to test route 2. So enter the destination box, I'll enter 2 and I'll press duplicate. I'll move up to route 2 and we'll call it test route 2. And this time, instead of clicking all of these manually, I'm going to press the invert button. So if it was on, it's now off. If it was off, it's now on. And I'm going to save the routes. Oh, before I save it, enable, I'm going to put this on vport 16.116. Now I'll save it. So now I have a route and an opposite route. And all I did to configure them was to learn from the buttons I pressed. So if you had a mimic panel, you'd set your points, it would learn the route, and it's done. And if you look at the status log, it's gone route learning active, listening for vport data in the range 1 to 8, so it tells us. Then it told us route learning finished. And then it's told us route 1 copied to route 2. So there's a log of everything we did. Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun. First of all, I'm just going to wipe everything, clean slate, del all, save routes. So it's gone back to its original factory state. So I am going to set up a simple route. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to turn the first 4 on and the second 4, sorry, the first 4 off, second 4 on. I'm going to give this enable vport of 16, feedback 116, and I'm going to put on the 9th one 16. Save. So what I've effectively done is set up a route that goes 1 to 4 off, 1 to 4 on, and then calls 16 and turns it back on, and 16 is itself. Now, because I'm driving servos, the 50 millisecond delay is a bit fast, so I'm going to set the default to 1000. I'm going to call this route IMAT and animation number 1. Save. Not going to be much use unless I show you the servos. So I'll pull over these servos. Hopefully you'll be able to see them. This is video presentation at its finest, of course. So here are the servos. Let's focus on that. So now if I go onto the screen and I've set it for 16. So button number 16 is this one. Can you see this is constantly looping now in an animation? So what I've done is I've effectively triggered an animation and the route is calling itself continuously, and it'll do that forever. You can even have routes call other routes. So if I put here a vport 1000 and I had a route number 20 on vport 1000, it would effectively call that as well. I'm going to hit the reboot button now, and you'll see when it restarts, the page will refresh, and there's the route. So I'd obviously saved it and it's come back up with displaying route number 1. So you can have routes call themselves, you can have routes call other routes, and you can have fun with animations to make things happen on your layout. The maximum display is 60 seconds between elements, so you could have something just alternate backwards and forwards with up to a 60-second delay between each event, or if you put 60 seconds on each, then it's going to take a while to work down, but you can turn them on. Animations are always manually triggered in that you have to fire it off and then it'll run until you restart the router next or clear it down. So you've seen me add routes through the route learning. You've seen me add routes through directly editing. You've also got some simple editing within this. So if I want to take this 4 and move it further up or down, you can use the up or down arrows. or I can take, so you can take individual elements up or down, or you can delete them. Another big feature of the route processor is the ability to backup and restore. So if I press the backup button, in progress is what it says here. Something's happening. Ooh, I saw that fly up here, and then it stored it saved the route on my local file system. It stores the route in the default download directory of your browser. So if I open that, and the problem here is that you won't be able to see it because it's a different window. If I hit the restore button, routes are named, it starts the file name root hyphen, then the serial number, and then the date of the backup. And if you double click it, you'll see here it's now restoring the routes. So it's restoring all 100 routes from the file. And now you're ready to save them back into the local storage. I've got some routes I prepared earlier, so if I go to the restore button and I pull in another set of routes, we'll do the restore for these. It has to chug through all 100. I'll show you another interesting feature of the router. Three-way left, sounds ominous. So somewhere in this router, I've got a three-way point configured, and I've got a route for the three-way to be set for left. I've got a route for the three-way to be straight, and I've got a route for the three-way to be right. But imagine if I have lots of routes in the system, how would I possibly locate those? Well, there's several things you can do. You can run a route report, and that will give you the headings, i.e. this information here, including the name of all the routes that are in the system. So if I press it, if you look in the status, so I've got route report, route number, default delay, enable vport, feedback vport, if there's an RFID vport here, and then the name, and that's the important thing. So three-way, left, straight and right. I've got yard north fast, yard north from slow on different routes as well. If I just wanted to, if I knew, for example, I had a lot of routes and I don't want to look through an endless list, I could search on the name. So if I type way for three-way point and do a search, now it's found routes containing the word way, or the letters way in their name, are route 1, 2 and 3. And we already know these are our three-way points, left, straight and right. If I wanted to search for routes with the word north, search, and I can see routes 4 and 5 are listed. If I am having a bit of fun and I'm triggering a vport and I don't know how it's being triggered, let's say I've got a vport number 7, I could click vport number 7 on the search vport and select search, and this would show all routes that reference vport number 7. So for more information and for the documentation, you should click the documentation link where it'll take you to the product page, and then you can hit the user guide. It'll give you a PDF with all the information. Let's make this a little larger. There are a lot of use cases in here. So in the example use cases, we run manual route creation, creating opposing routes, saving routes, editing. I've given you worked examples so you can follow along and have a bit of fun. Route learning, background, selective deafness, which is the route range selection, setting up, capturing routes, searching. There's so much extensive information within this. We also include subroutes, which talks about routes calling other routes and how this would work. And we use the three-way point as the example. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.